Hi, my name is Michael, and in this video I'm going to talk about best practices when designing app icons. I've been designing icons for many years, for clients around the world, for my own products, and sometimes just for fun. I've given talks about icons at schools and conferences. I also create and maintain resources that help other people make better icons. In short, I love making icons. Potentially to the point of being a little obsessive. No, really. I have a t-shirt that says Iconist. I wear that t-shirt proudly. I enjoy the process, the challenge, and the reward. I recently wrote an article on best practices for Net magazine, and you can think of this video as the companion screencast to that article. So if you at any point during these next minutes need more contextual information, I advise you to seek out the article. I'll leave a link in the description. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you know what an app icon is and why they're so important to get right when creating a mobile application. I'm also going to assume that you are somewhat familiar with the tools involved in making icons. This will not be a step-by-step on how to make icons, but rather some general things to keep in mind when creating your next digital gem. I'm going to go over a few core aspects of icon design that I think are important, and for each theme, I'll show an example and discuss how I've worked with that quality. The examples will mostly be icons that I've worked on. Now, this isn't because I feel like my work is the best or only way to illustrate these things, far from it, but using my own work has the important benefit of me knowing what thoughts and decisions went into the design. Most of the examples are iOS icons, but the concept can just as well be applied to Android. Maybe you're about to design your first icon, or maybe you're a seasoned freelance veteran. Hopefully there'll be something in here for everyone. Part 1. Scalability. One of the most important aspects of an icon is scalability. Because the icon is going to be shown in several places throughout the platform and at several sizes, it's important your creation maintains its legibility and uniqueness. Overly complicated icons that try to cram too much in often falls victim to bad scalability. So a very big part of the conceptual stages of an app icon design should be dedicated to thinking about if a given design scales gracefully. Let's bring up an example. Late 2014, I was designing an upcoming Mac app that me and the guys at my company RoboCat was working on. The app, which may or may not have been released when you see this, was called Breaking. It's an app that lets you add news feeds to your Today view. Long story short, the Mac app icon concept I ended up with was a play on a wave breaking with the wave consisting of a rolled up newspaper. It worked great for a Mac app where real estate for the icon is larger. But when it came time to design an iOS counterpart, the details of the newspaper was quickly lost and became muddy in the smaller sizes shown on the home screen, detracting from the overall appeal of the icon. So I set out to create a version of the icon that would feel like it was related to the Mac app icon, but with affordances given to the platform it was designed to be used on. After many iterations, I finally ended up with a concept that much more gracefully scaled across the various places where the user would interact with it on the platform. Breaking for iOS now had an app icon that still paid tribute to the original Mac app, but with a more scalable approach that felt like a better fit for the mobile context. Here's some things that you can try when working on improving scalability. Working on a 1024 pixel canvas can be deceptive. Make sure you try out your designs on the device and in multiple contexts and sizes. Embrace simplicity and focus on a single object, preferably a unique shape or element that retains its contours and qualities when scaled. Make sure the app icon looks good against different colored backgrounds. Part 2. Recognizability. An app icon is like a little song, and being able to identify it easily in amongst all the noise of the store or your home screen is a key component in great icon design. Like the verse of a song needs to resonate with the listener, so do the shapes, colors, and ideas of an app icon. The design needs to craft a sense of memory and connection on both a functional and an emotional level. You basically want your icon to stand out and be easy to identify. There's obviously no single way to do that, or everybody would just be doing that. Scalability that we just talked about is a big part of it, but so is novelty. You want to find what makes the digital product you're working on unique and amplify that to the extent that it's immediately apparent to the user. In the summer of 2013, I was working on a new icon for the Thermodo companion app. Hold up. That probably needs at least 20 seconds of introduction to make sense. In early 2013, my company RoboCat launched a Kickstarter campaign to build a tiny hardware thermometer for your smartphone, a fun underdog story of software developers building hardware. After an overwhelming campaign, we received a massive 10 times the requested funding and started a year-long adventure to build tens of thousands of little thermometers that plug into the audio jack of your device. So here I was, tasked to create an icon that would represent the digital companion app to our little piece of hardware. It was tricky. Do you go for an abstraction, or do you go for a more literal depiction of the product? We explored a range of options in the search for recognizability. In the end, we opted for a stylish yet more literal depiction of the sensor part of our hardware. The reasoning was that it was the solution that had the strongest direct relation to the product the user was holding in their hands. Recognizability, in this case, was as simple as referencing the product you'd be using with the app. I know, an unfair example, as a lot of apps don't have that luxury, but come on, I had to include this. Here's the app icon we ended up with. Here's some stuff you can try out when working on improving recognizability. Bland, overly complicated icons are the enemy of recognizability. Try removing details from your icon until the concept starts to fall apart. Does this improve recognizability? Try out several variations on your design. Line them up in a grid and try to glance over them, seeing what aspects of the design catch your eye. Try to deconstruct your favorite app icons and figure out why you like them and what methods they use to stand out. Part 3. Consistency. There's something to be said for creating consistency between the experience of interacting with your app icon and interacting with the app it represents. I feel like good icon design is an extension of what the app is all about. Making sure that the two support each other will create a more memorable encounter and more easily stick in the mind of the user. Way back in 2011, I was designing a little weather app called Thermo. Thermo is a very simple app that basically shows you a richly rendered thermometer in a vintage wooden setting. Tap the thermometer and you get the immediate temperature from the local weather station. There's some history features, a theme shop and some other stuff, but that's beside the point. The animations, the sound and ultimately the execution of the visual universe all work towards an experience that is memorable. People remember the deep red liquid inside the shiny glass thermometer, the clinking sound it makes when you tap it, and the warmth of the wooden background. So what does the app icon look like? Like this. It's more or less a continuation of the visual universe. Same metaphor, same colors, same textures, all re-rendered in a way that leaves it somewhat scalable and recognizable while still retaining that important icon-to-app consistency. The icon is literally an extension of the interface, and the visual language is reinforced when you interact with the icon and dive into the experience of using the app. Today, Thermo is a massive hit with more than 5 million downloads, and I believe that a big part of that success can be attributed to the way we designed the app icon and the interface and how those two things support each other. Here's some things you can do when working on consistency. One way to ensure consistency between app and icon is to keep the color palette of your interface and icon in line, and use a similar and consistent design language. So if you have a green interface, maybe that's reinforced by a green app icon. Although it's not always possible, one way to tighten the connection between your app and your icon is for the symbolism of the icon to directly relate to the functionality of the app. Part 4. Uniqueness. This almost goes without saying, but try to make something unique. Mimicking a style or a trend is perfectly fine, but make it your own. Your app icon is constantly competing with other icons for the user's attention, and standing out can be a perfectly valid argument for a design. Uniqueness is a tricky part of design because it not only relies on your skills, but also on the choices of other people who are trying to tackle a similar task. Rather than finding an example from my own portfolio to illustrate this aspect, I find it much more effective to show you this. A screenshot of the productivity genre in the App Store. It's a perfect example of how uniqueness didn't enter into the design process. Here's some things to think about when addressing uniqueness. Consider what everyone else is doing in your space, then try a different direction. Always do your research. The world really doesn't need another checkmark icon. A singular glyph on a one-color background can be a tricky route to go down if you want to stay unique. Play around with different colors and compositions and challenge yourself to find new and clever metaphors. Color is a great and often overlooked way of repositioning a concept. Part 5. Don't use words. Just don't. Okay, so not so much a core concept of icon design, but rather just one of my all-time top pet peeves. Only in the rarest of occasions is it okay to use words in app icons. If you have to retreat to another tool of abstraction, the written word, I'd say that you're not using the full force of your pictorial arsenal. Words and pictures are separate representational tools, and mixing them in what is supposed to be a graphical representation often leads to a cluttered and unfocused experience, which is harder to decode. Is there really no better way to visualize the application than with dry words? Whenever I see words in app icons, I feel like the designer missed an opportunity to more clearly convey their intentions. We're not going to hang anyone out to dry here, so I'm going to refrain from giving any examples of this, but you know they're out there. Here's some things to think about when you're considering using words in app icons. There's no need to include the app name in the icon. It will most often be accompanying the icon in the interface. Instead, spend your time coming up with a cool pictorial concept. If you're using a singular letter and you feel like it's a good and unique fit, then the letter loses its wordy qualities and becomes iconic by itself. Your company logo and a name in a square is rarely a good solution. Do you have a mark or a glyph that works well within the constraints? If not, you're probably best off coming up with something new. Remember, icons and logos are not the same and shouldn't be forced into the same context. On the App Store and on Google Play, there are many examples of bland and unopinionated icon designs that all disregard some or all of the things mentioned in this video. Your icon is the strongest connection you'll have with your user. It's what they'll see first when they meet you in the App Store or on Google Play. It's what they'll interact with every single time they use your app. It is what they'll think of when they think of your app. Anything short of a well thought out, fitting and attractive solution is a failure to utilize your greatest visual asset. There's obviously a lot more to app icon design than the few things I've talked about here, but I hope the themes I've outlined will make you more confident in taking on the challenge. If not, you can always hire a professional. Most of us are pretty cool to work with. Find more resources from me at appicontemplate.com. Now go forth and make a fantastic app icon.